Excuse me.
Recording in progress.
Question? I was just going to ask if the public comment could be moved ahead of the presentation, because I know there's a few people that have some things to say, but they don't necessarily want to sit through the presentation from Trilogy.
I think there are some folks that do want to hear the presentation and may want to comment afterwards.
There's public comment at the end of the meeting then also, correct?
No, this is the only opportunity for public comment. Yep. I know. Right. All right, so calling our the Scio Township Planning Commission meeting for October 24th, 2022 to order at 7:01. And with that, we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Secretary Chang, roll call, please.
Commissioner Moore.
Present.
Commissioner Human.
Present.
Commissioner Hyde. Commissioner Chang, present. Commissioner Culbertson.
Present. All right. The next item is the adoption of the agenda, and we did hear a request to change the order of public comment, either before or after the requested.
You were quite right, the public comments are after the presentation so that people can talk about it. I think we need to have that. It wouldn't be part of the, no. it wouldn't be
So I'll
Move to
entertain.
adopt the agenda.
Is there support? Okay, moved by Commissioner Moore, supported by Commissioner Hyde to adopt the agenda as posted. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Communications and correspondence. We did get an email from Jillian Carey regarding the Honey Creek Business Park. Any other communications?
When was that sent out?
Yeah,
I didn't get it. I'm sorry if it was today.
5:48. I
Oh,
received
okay.
it.
well, it's been a struggle.
Yep. Okay. I didn't see any other communications. All right, and then we'll move on to the presentation requested by the Planning Commission, and then this is for the Trilogy Senior Facility. And do you have an online presentation, or are you doing something?
There are 2 online presentations and I'm in person.
Okay, great.
So
And then if people could come up and introduce yourselves and,
there's only one person here. for
okay, just you.
Just me.
Okay.
Yep, just me. I have display boards. Can I set them behind you so the online people can see them?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the best
Right back
place.
here?
Well, I'm gonna change the camera to you,
Yeah,
Okay.
and so you can put them behind you.
Behind, but then they won't be able to see them.
Well,
We'll turn around.
I don't know what to say.
They can see them online.
Watch my TV.
Are
They'll
those,
see it on the screen though, wouldn't they?
yeah, are those boards online, in the online
They're
presentation?
not, they're in person only.
I did promote Daniel Johnson, Joe Maynard, and John Schneer as requested. I
Yeah,
don't see a Craig or.
he's not joining. He is out of town.
Okay, and I don't, oh, Scott just, okay, got Scott here too. Okay.
And if you would, for the record, the folks that have the online presentations, if you would email those in, then we can include them in the record.
Absolutely.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Would we be able to see them from here if I set them up here kind of universally, or? Who wants to see them the most? Can you see it all right?
We can quasi-see it online, yeah, we'll have to,
What's that?
we'll work it out.
I can do anything you want.
Okay.
I'm trying to make it the most convenient for everybody. And not take up a lot of time.
Yeah, and also if you want to hold them up when you're speaking, closer to the camera, that might work too. You can do the zoom in the camera. Maybe. Okay.
If you're overextending.
Camera coming up.
Okay. All right, good evening, everybody. I'm Heath Ryder from Trilogy Health Services out of Louisville, Kentucky, and thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it. Okay. What I want to do is we're going to have a presentation online, and it's going to be from the owner of the company. He's going to do a direct presentation, and this is from the exact building that we just finished up in Hilliard, Ohio, down in Columbus, Ohio. And so if you will now, John Schnar has the presentation for you. Take it away, John. See how well technology works today, right? Jonathan?
Jonathan Pond?
Yes,
Okay, he wasn't on my list. I'm promoting him now.
they're the same company, same team.
I see. He wasn't on my list. He is now a panelist, so hopefully. Yes, you should be able to.
He says he's trying to load in.
Yeah, because when you're promoted to panelist, you get kicked off and then it comes back in.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Here he goes.
John, you can go ahead. Gone, just like that. Maybe he's having technical problems. Do we want to switch to Scott?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Sorry,
We can't see you.
can't see me. Sorry. There it is. 1 second. I only showed up. Here we go.
Oh, can't hear the sound though. John, can you turn your sound on?
I've got it on right now.
Well, since we don't hear it, why don't you pause it and try to adjust it? So this is the building.
This is the building we're gonna build. Yep, it's the same building we built. We built the same building again and again, although we do make modifications to it. HFES makes suggestions that we comply with, and then we're ever updating the
That would
building.
look like it was a one-story
But it is a two-story.
Oh, that is.
Yeah, when the flyover comes up, it's gonna fly right up over the two-story section. And then we're gonna actually walk in through the front door. So when the backside of the building, while we're waiting on this, maybe the physical presentation, so the backside of the building does look like a one-story. But when the flyover, actually, I don't even have a view of the flyover starts and it comes in from the front side of the building that this actually doesn't represent, but this is the two-story section. So there it is, see the drone, see the two-story, we're gonna fly right up over when we start in. Although we still can't hear it, I don't know why. He does a great presentation, he's the owner of our company, it sounds really great.
Heath, I thought you were going to provide the voiceover. No,
Say it again?
I thought you were going to do the voiceover for us.
I don't sound quite like Randy.
Okay.
Are you showing that the volume's on?
Yeah, it's on. It's loud. It's very loud here.
Yeah, it may be your Zoom setting.
Is your Zoom? He's not used to using Zoom, we use Teams for the most part, so.
We can just do a visual.
Yeah, John, let's start over one more time. If we can't hear it, let's just play through it. We don't want to keep everybody here tonight. We wanted to be in and out in 5-10 minutes, so.
Sure.
As to move on and let them go to their next.
Or did you email this?
We will email this to you. This wasn't emailed, but we can email it in so that you can watch it. And this is the owner of our company. He is explaining since the beginning and inception of the company and how we've evolved, and that we're a full continuum company. We have all services. These are some of our investors that are on there. These are showing our individual rooms, our skilled rooms. Speaks a little bit more about the overall building. The building is 83,688 square feet. There's a total of 105 rooms with 114 overall beds, giving you 9 semi-private beds. And then during the day shift, we have about 50 employees from the area. On the night shift, there's only about 10 to 12 that have to take care of the night shift because of course they're resting. We have on average, about 5% of our residents drive. That can be up to 10% of our residents will drive. Just depends on the overall continuum of care. So it gives you a brief background into it. And of course, it's a lovely facility, as you can see. And we have many areas inside and out here, salons, of course. There was a corner cafe, exterior areas. I think we have a nice visual here coming up of the putting green. We have, what's that?
He's bet it up.
Yeah, he's bet it up, try to get it over with. All right, thanks, Jonathan, I appreciate that, even though we couldn't hear it. I
Sorry
appreciate
for the technical difficulty.
That's all right.
I
So,
saw that there was like a workout
Yeah,
area. Do you have
yes.
a pool? or is
Oh.
it-
this facility does not have a pool. We do have a facility with a pool. We have an indoor pool, we have an outdoor pool, and then we have spas as well.
But not here.
But this building will not have those. Yeah. absolutely.
Does that have to do with the size of the building?
What's that?
Does that have to do with the size of the building?
No, evolving over the years, just what the board decides is most important to, I suppose, to the area and to the residents as they, survey the area.
And then would you talk again about the, so you have, how many beds are skilled nursing and what's the Medicaid?
I don't have that breakdown for this building with me. I can supply it in writing to you. What's the breakdown? We have a whole department that does that. We have 114 beds in 105 rooms. So there's 9 semi-private in the whole facility.
Yeah, it would be good to understand the component, and I think you mentioned that you have the certificate of need for a certain.
And I think we previously have provided it, just it wasn't with the notes that I brought tonight. But I was trying more for a quick visual display, bring you all up to date, since we had previously presented those to you.
And then is there someone that can talk a little bit about, you briefly said, staffing during the day is about 50 people.
Yep.
What sort of, what you use on the different units to, from a staffing standpoint, what your ratios are at night?
Well, the staffing during the day is up to 50 employees, anywhere from therapy to nurses, skilled nursing, our assisted living side. We have staff for the independent living, which all of our independent living is on the second floor right now. Kind of makes more sense. At night, we don't have quite as much staff needs, so really it's a nursing staff at night, which is just 10 to 12 people on average.
And is the facility segregated, or
It
do
is.
people
Absolutely.
float between, and who gets to use the, fitness area? Do you have segregated dining rooms? How does that work? And what kind of flow is it?
So we actually have dining for each area of the building. So skilled has their own dining, independent living has their own dining, assisted living has their own dining, and they are set up by wings, so that everybody stays. I don't want to say you're locked into your zone, but you have your own. Each corridor has its own purpose, and then you eat on your own corridor. Now the assisted living is underneath the atrium here. It's more of a common area. It's big and wide open, because those are, more mobile resident for us.
And then we talked a little bit about, I think there was a commitment from the developer that they would be designing to the new energy code.
I have a presentation for that.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a great presentation for that. So if we can, good lead in, let's go ahead and let Scott. Hopefully we can hear him.
Okay, great.
Hi, Scott, can you hear us?
I can hear you guys. Yeah. So I think I
Fantastic,
just need
take
to
it
get
away.
elevated to presenter so I can share a screen.
You should be able to do that. You should be able to do that now. You're a panelist.
Not seeing the toggle for it.
So at the bottom of the screen, it says share screen. You should.
No, I'm not seeing it. I'm in here twice, once on a computer, once on.
Oh, maybe you presented, maybe find it in the second one and promote it.
Oh, one's audio.
One's.
There we go.
yeah,
Got
One's
it.
on its phone.
I see it. Yep. Now I got it.
That looks like a phone.
Okay. Hey guys, nice to meet you. I am Scotty Maderi. I'm president of Enerlogics. We are a solar developer working with the Trilogy team and really kind of excited about this project, trying to find ways to make this happen. A little bit about who we are, just to kind of give you guys an idea of calls. I think most germane for the team here, we are doing a portfolio with the city of Ann Arbor on 7 sites within the city itself. Those will go up in early 2023. They'll start going under construction. Wrapped up the design phase over the latter half of last year and into early this year. But we are a large-scale developer doing solar projects across the country, everywhere from California to Boston, including, like I said, Ann Arbor is one of our projects. For overall, what we look at is sort of why some of the drivers are there for solar, and suffice it to say, we look at really 3 main drivers right now. One is electricity cost savings, really kind of providing locally generated on-site solar to lower costs, number one, to also achieve sustainability goals, reducing carbon footprint through local generation, avoiding the transmission and distribution associated with offsite or long distance travel of the power from, say, a DTE facility all the way to the site. And then we also leverage tax benefits to really kind of drive the cost down. So the Inflation Reduction Act brought in a whole host of new tax credits that we're going to continue to leverage to bring the cost of solar down for our constituents. When we look at sort of some visuals of what does solar look like for this site, we're looking at a ground mount system. The example photo there is from our installation at Kent State University in Salem, but they are a fixed tilt installation designed and set off in a way that's designed so that it captures the maximum amount of sun. It's unobtrusive, it's low profile, it's out of the way. We can kind of go fairly close to where tree lines are as long as there aren't too many trees to the south. But this is the kind of installation we'd be envisioning for the Heritage Woods project. When we look at the project overall, the site plan identified a future solar farm sort of on the north edge of it. And that's exactly what we're talking about. So again, kind of looking more visually, that district utility section on the north edge of the property is where we are envisioning the solar. And we're looking at a system that's going to produce roughly 45% of the consumption for that district, or sorry, for the site, with a 950 kW, 950 kilowatt ground mount system. Again, visually, it's going to look very much like we're looking at here. Less rows, but the same kind of concept. And again, we'll have some low profile landscaping around it to kind of set it off from the rest of the residences. Last area in there is again being code compliant with EV charging. So at the senior living facility, we're planning on a single pellet solar with dual level 2 chargers. We'll kind of pre-wire that so that as more and more adoption rates of EV charging increase, or EVs increase, we have the ability to increase the number of deployments we're going to do, but to start just a single set of 2 chargers to handle those handful of residents that are driving, employees that are driving, et cetera.
Would those be 1, 2, or 3rd generation EV chargers?
I'm not sure about generation.
Level,
these are
not
level 2.
generation.
Yeah, level 2.
Level 2, okay.
Level 2, yeah. Yeah, we're still seeing, I guess I'd say, more drive for level 2, particularly for long dwell times, meaning where people are there for hours. Level 3 still seems mostly focused on corridors where people are doing it for interstate transmission or interstate transportation.
These are totally separate from the solar, is that correct?
Correct. Totally separate from solar, adjacent to the senior living facility on the plan here. They'd be located in the parking lot closest to the main entranceways.
Do you want us to wait until you're done before we ask a lot of questions?
That was it. So I went quick. So any questions, please ask.
Have you resolved the issues with DTE, or are you still working them out as to how you're going to network or distribute this power? The solar.
To be worked out. Yeah. So there is, according to DTE's maps, there is sufficient capacity to support this online, but we have not yet filed interconnection applications with DTE.
A question about the site distribution. Just thinking that, are you going to apply for like a microgrid, or is it going to feed primarily the senior living facility? And you talked about 45% of the site-wide, but is that what you meant, including all of the?
Predominantly is going to feed the district utility. So the district utility energy side has a decent amount of consumption. It's going to be distributed throughout the site overall. But we have not yet gone as detailed into the site level distribution plan.
Okay, all right, because, yeah, all right, and this
we
is all
know
gonna
there's
be-
challenges with DTE, and I guess I'd say my experience with Ann Arbor is that DTE is not easy, but there are ways to push them in a direction that is advantageous for the project.
Okay. Because I suppose the worst case scenario, do you know, you should know, since you've built these similar buildings, about what the annual energy load is, and and whether or not, you know, if we couldn't do a microgrid, we could feed the one.
Yes, and we've given Scott all that information for several of our buildings, which he's then prepared the study, which is how he has the information that he does here. And then from our usage.
Next question is, okay, so we're 45%, all right. I think we heard, we're not quite sure about the all-electric piece. Because is that 45% of the electric usage if it's all electric, or is it 45% of the electric, knowing that heating and cooking and all of those things are going to be gas? Because that's a big difference.
Heating and cooking will be gas for this building.
For the main building.
And would you?
Well, I'm only here to present for the Trilogy building. So really, the only part of this whole project that's actually us is just this Trilogy building. I don't have anything to do with the overall site itself. We're just purchasing the individual piece of property there for our building.
Right, so continuing that theme, I mean, the individual villas, I don't know if they're fully electrified or not. We're only focused in on the larger energy loads, the district utility itself and the senior living setting that Trilogy is doing.
Okay.
So I'm not the site developer per se. I don't really have anything to do with the site other than we are just buying the piece of property for our building itself. So
then the question was, how is this development going to be carbon neutral by 2035?
I'm not the development again.
No, I
so-
mean, but your building,
Oh.
how is your building, the Trilogy building, going to be carbon neutral by 2035?
I will not be. I cannot be. We have to purchase gas for our cooking,
And why is that?
currently the way the building's designed.
And we've got an awful lot of kitchens going in that are all electric. Would Trilogy be willing to look at that?
We could definitely look at it. I mean, that's something that we could consider down the road, you know, but it would be a substantial investment. And I don't know whether or not you have a TIF to help pay for it.
I think they're gonna be, lots of incentives for all electric buildings. And I think it would be worthwhile to look at that. It also saves energy because the makeup air is totally different with an all electric kitchen.
So, right, the current building is designed with the captive air system and then with the outside makeup being at 100%. But what we have learned is that it's very non-efficient. It's only about 40% efficient. So we are working through John Schnarr and UDA at a redesign to make the building hopefully between 80 and 90% efficient for the usage. So.
What does 80 to 90% efficient mean?
On the fuel efficiency for the electricity and for the fuel usage.
Okay, for overall.
Yep.
All right, the other thing you can look at are offsets. There is a natural gas offset. And also if all of your, right now, My Green Power is at actually a slight reduced rate. So if you commit to those kinds of things, you can get to carbon neutrality.
Absolutely, and we're aware of the natural gas offset, and it's something that we can work towards. But currently, as the building's designed.
Yeah, but I would I encourage you to look at that because I think that's going to be more of an issue as you roll out these buildings throughout the country. That all electric piece is big now.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I thought a new build allows you to be more creative in terms of its design.
We are, and we recognize the fact that we are very environmentally conscious and we are improving every day, and that's one of the things that we do. But the current design as it's coming out, you know, we start these buildings 2 years ago, you know, in the design process and putting them together. It's, you know, at this point, we're roughly 2 years into this, putting this together and putting this building together for it, you know. And so in 2 years, what will our buildings look like? They're probably going to be a lot more like what you're talking about.
But how's that gonna help our community? I'm not expecting you to answer that, but I'm just trying to say that to say, we're looking at now,
Yeah, I have.
sustainability now.
Yeah, no,
Working towards sustainability now, not
And-
achieving
and-
everything in one full swoop, but I mean, certainly when you have new buildings, that's a unique opportunity
Yeah.
that would cost less than the retrofit old
Yeah.
buildings, so.
I know that they're looking at studies, and I know that the generation from the electricity, if we were to go to all electricity, it's still being generated somebody else, somewhere else that, is either a coal-fired plant or a natural gas plant or something like that, and then there's large emissions from that. We are also looking into how to reduce that. One of the other things is, of course, we've brought on people like Scott who can give us the ability to go with the solar and natural gas. Those are things, we had engaged Scott prior to even, starting this building here. It was for another building. But with your initiative, since we were already environmentally conscious, we like, Scott, we need you to come to this building right away because they're actually looking for it up front. And Craig, who's not on this meeting, we had a phone call not long ago, which I had informed him that this building may jump ahead of the other building as far as, doing the installation of the solar fields and the EV charging and stuff. We've not, to date, to this building, we've not had a need. Nobody has had a need for an EV charger, but, that's just 1 year's difference from the last building as to getting to this building, as Biden has this initiative where he wants everybody, by the state to be driving electric cars. I've applied for 2 electric cars myself, just hopefully one day they'll come in. I'm going to soon be needing this electric, EV charger, myself, but currently we don't have a single staff member. We don't have a single resident at any of our buildings that currently are requesting this. But we know within a year or two, we're going to need not just the 2 we're planning on, but maybe, and that's why with Scott here, he said we're going to put in the infrastructure for this building to be able to add, more of the EV chargers.
When will this building be finished?
Takes 15 months.
15 months.
Yep. So
I think 2 EV chargers is way too few.
we only have 5% of people. We only have 5% of people that even drive. So of the 5% of people that drive, what is the percentage that actually have an electric car? So that's why this. What's that?
Your son and daughter,
They don't come here.
Pardon me?
They don't come here.
Well, what about the 50 people that work there?
There's no residents have visitors.
What's that?
I said
They stop for an hour or two and they don't need to charge because most people, these residents live in your community now. They do. They will leave their home on a fully charged or assumed charged vehicle. They will come over to the building and return. Somebody driving an EV car at this point in time is not traveling a distance because a lot of the EV cars right now, at least the one I'm buying, only goes 200 and some miles until it needs a charge. And so that causes our thought process to be that the people driving the EV cars, there will be some, right? But they're going to come visit the building and go home at night, just like our employees. They're going to come work at the building all day long and they're going to go back home because all 50 employees that I hire are going to live inside this radius. And so they're going to drive to work and they're going to work here and they're going to go back home at night. They'll most likely not charge, although they could charge. We are going to have EV chargers. And then of course you have the point, Scott, will also, a car will come with a regular 110, the low charge one, right? So they can plug in at the outlets on the outside of the building as well.
Yeah, a lot of the vehicles do, correct. So basically an extension cord that would be able to plug into 110, right?
Yep. So, we're looking at a lot of the different ways of which this will work, but
Under your scenario, we wouldn't even ask anybody to put in EV. I mean, we would say, they're just coming for a minute, and then they're going back home.
Many businesses probably won't need
But
an
that
EV
would not
charger,
be-
but
But that would not be contributing to a sustainability world. In other words, we can't think about what the use is just today, right? We have to think about what the use is going to be over 10 or 20 years.
and I think that's what we're doing here is we're putting in the infrastructure to be able to add the EV chargers. But as we see it in today's, where we are today with what we can, I mean, how do I put it? Scott, what are these? They're about 4,000 a piece to put in one of these EV chargers.
Correct.
So,
And for the equipment, right? And the vast majority of it is putting in, on top of that would be putting in the conduit, putting in installation. So
yeah.
really by
The
doing
charger
this
itself.
very proactively and putting, essentially pre-plumbing it, if you will, to be ready, that gives us the ability to kind of leapfrog technology too, right? So we don't necessarily have to build with the best technology today, but we can be ready when those technology improvements come and upgrade that in the future. So we don't have to put in 10 chargers out of the box that we know are going to be obsolete in six years.
Right.
We put in, 2 chargers now. As that technology improves, as there's more demand, we start adding more and more chargers, and we can, again, replace older ones as they cycle off from a usability perspective. But I think, kind of having the foresight to say where EV charging is moving over the next 10 or 20 years, it's really hard given that there is a fairly slow adoption rate and the technology is going to continue to evolve over the next decade. So I think this is actually a more sustainable way of doing it. We're not going to go put in equipment that's not necessary today, but we're going to put in equipment that is commensurate with the demand today, but be ready to expand that as we go over time.
I think Scio residents have adopted EV a lot more than maybe other communities might have, because what I see, at least in my neighborhood, is that there's 37 units and at least 6 high-speed chargers, and everybody's trying to figure out where to plug in a car now.
Right.
I think that 2 is far too.
Well, we're not going to be selling it either. It is for the people that come to our building or sales. We're not one of those high-speed chargers where somebody's going to come off the highway and come to charge to us. It is more for, like you said, somebody's going to come visit our building, visit our residents, or work there. Now, so what I'm telling you though is we're just getting into this, and with you guys and your request and your, being, 2035, wanting to be net zero, is we're trying to work with you and install the, the undergrounds for the expansion of it. Because if we did indeed find the use was there, the need was there, for all the people that were coming to our buildings, we would have to add them, and we would add them to service the people that come to our building and our residents and their kids and their children.
I just want to remind people that we will have a chance to look at, the site plan in more detail too.
Right.
Go ahead.
Just to go further than Chairperson Culverson's comments about 2035, if you were to try to retrofit the building, that would be a lot more expensive than to start out with an electric heating system.
But it would probably cost us $500,000 to change the plans right now. So that's currently our current investment.
And you have no ongoing designing going on right now to do that very thing?
No.
So that isn't in the foreseeable future for any of your buildings?
Not currently. Oh, no, for this building. We're just speaking of this building. Now, our John, who he texted me and said he got kicked off the meeting, but the heat is ever evolving. Like right now, I said he's going through the HVAC system right now to try to make it more efficient. Last year, when we did this building for this design, that was his initiative to find the system that was for this building. So the building is ever evolving, and I kind of started out that way, that for each building, it will get, we'll work our way through it. But one of the other things though too is during, some of this technology is so magnificent, but very unaffordable at this point. So our building from last year to this year went up $1.7 million with the changes that we made. So it's expensive. Now we're talking, it's a large price tag in the first place, but it really jumped.
So what happens, this is sort of hypothetical, what happens when a community has a regulated EV solar? What will you do then?
We will comply.
We're getting there.
You don't have regulated right now,
No, we-
currently, correct?
No, we
Yeah,
don't.
yeah.
But as you can see, we have
You're
a
going
very
towards it.
strong policy without a regulation.
Absolutely.
That's why we're having this conversation.
And absolutely,
Slow-
and as
just give me
you
a
can
minute,
see,
just
we
give me a
brought
minute.
in.
So that's why you're getting this
Go ahead.
response to what you want to tell us what you did yesterday. Because the plans that you have of yesteryear are not fitting our view of our community going into the future, and
Yeah.
that's what a problem is. I'm
Yeah.
not expecting you to answer that. I just,
Oh, no, no,
I
and
think
I-
a lot of developers are dealing with that.
Yeah, and I completely, appreciate the question, and as you can see is that, although in our previous, just one building back, which we started in, well, we started a building in Bowling Green, Ohio, then Grand Rapids, Ohio, and then Muskegon, Ohio. Hudsonville broke ground about a month ago. Muskegon is breaking ground currently. And those buildings didn't have any of this. And with your request, we have brought in Scott and pulling him forward. He was already doing a study for us on another building to add solar to that building and possibly EV charging. We looked at, one of the first things that we looked at was the solar carports, but they weren't very attractive. And there was no, I think as Scott can tell you, there was no benefit to having the solar carports. They didn't factor.
Lower energy production, higher cost. It was very, very expensive to make that work. I mean, I think for the city, for the council, I mean, I think we certainly appreciate where you guys are coming from on this one. I think we're stuck in some ways between two policy regimes. One is your guys' desire for higher and higher sustainability. We want to address that with on-site solar as much as we can. The challenge is DTE being the behemoth that it is and not having a very solar-friendly policy. So I think I would encourage you all to, vote where you can to make sure the Public Utility Commission is aware of that policy stance. But this same project in Ohio, I could do massively more solar without the handcuffs that DTE would put on me today. And I think that's really driven at a policy level at the state. So again, I know DTE is very, very strong in the state. I know it's a challenge. I know it's hard to displace them, particularly in a regulated state. But we are doing the maximum we can with on-site solar, given some of the limitations we have within certain current DTE and statewide policy.
Appreciate that part.
But the
Yeah.
electrification of the buildings themselves.
Yeah.
Is not being
Yeah,
addressed.
'cause I mean, I think that's what we're after is at some point in time, you're going to be needing to offset that, all of those emissions for the life of the building. Factor in those costs with the cost to change the plans to electrify.
And that is one of the reasons why we're working with Scott.
We don't want solar.
What's that?
We mean heating.
Yeah, no,
And cooking.
right. They're more focused on the natural gas,
Right.
right? So on the natural gas
We can
aspect.
do the natural gas, and that is one of the things that we're able to do. But to switch the building itself to all electric at this point in time, the way the building is designed, it's gonna take some time.
Are you saying that you can switch the appliances to electric?
No,
No, I cannot.
the design.
Okay.
He's talking about the commercial kitchen.
Yeah,
But
yeah, we have
everything
large
else will be
commercial
electric
kitchens.
in the independent living.
Yeah, and like our individual resident units, those are electric heat. A large portion of the building is under electric heat, which you would be more aware, right?
Okay.
So, but
So
the kitchen is the kitchen is definitely the concern for us, and I don't want to sit here and represent to you that I will change this kitchen in this building standing right here today. There would have to be studies. I have all sorts of engineers that work for us that would tell us, what would need to be done. One of the secondary things is too, HFES, I believe in the state of Michigan makes me be dual fuel. So.
You have to have a generator, basically.
Yeah, but it has to be gas.
It does.
Yeah.
A generator.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't get away with it.
I can't be zero because HFES will not allow me to be, because I have to have both. I have to have gas and I have to have electric generation one way or the other. That way I've got that backup. I can be natural gas, I can be diesel. And I'm sure they're gonna change their regulations. And I'm sure that's being worked on. Just hasn't made it down to me yet, but I know that, I think you asked me the last meeting, and the first thing that scared me was before I answered you was, I have HFES, and they are more powerful than you. Like they're gonna tell me I have to have either natural gas, because I have to be able to cook for these residents, right? So if everything goes wrong, the snowstorm comes or whatever it is, or the hurricane or anything, if any of that happens, I have residents that have to be taken care of. And that is our number one concern, is to take care of the elderly.
Back to, you're talking the backup generator.
Which is gas,
I understand.
which consumes more.
It's the backup.
Right, it's a backup, absolutely. So.
Okay. Yeah, well, I think you get the message that we're hoping, we're
No,
pushing
absolutely
as
get the
hard as we
message.
can.
I would
We
be
are very
shocked if
forward.
you're designing this already.
I understand that, but you're in Michigan and we are throughout this half of the US. And there are different views in different areas that lead us down different paths. And we have to try to comply to everybody's view, and which is what we're trying, right? We're new to it, as you can see, talking with Scott, looking at EV charging, looking at purchasing some or all. We can actually probably, Scott, we can almost purchase all of the electric from the solar field itself, right? Or
You guys
split
can, yeah, I mean, take all of it or as much as we can possibly build in that area and interconnect with DTE.
Yeah, and so those are all conversations that we're having, studies that we're doing, that we're working through. From the last meeting to now has really been an evolution of, information that's been coming through in the conversations of, how do we make you happy, right? And how do we use the building and the plans that we currently have without having to, there's would be no way to stop. We would just have to go elsewhere with it if it had to be. We just couldn't. You couldn't invest another $500,000 in plans and stuff.
But that $500,000 will be, you'll be able to then
Not for the life of this
sell
building.
for the.
They wouldn't get $1 million back out of this building being.
What do you think the carbon offsets are for this building, for the life of the building? Is it a 35-year building? Carbon offsets? I don't know. But anyway, I think that's, I think you get the point.
No, I do.
We're gonna push, this is a PUD, so we are gonna push for what we believe is best for our
Absolutely.
community.
I understand.
So, all right.
Thank you. Thank you for having me tonight. Hey, Scott, thanks for presenting. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Nice to meet you all.
Anybody
you.
have any comments before questions or comments?
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, we
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, guys.
And the presentations will be emailed.
Yeah, and we'll get sort of the staff plan, continue to work on your carbon neutrality plan and the presentation. And we'll try and provide, I'll go through you guys with some resources too. Great. And we'll continue on. Next is public comment. And so folks wishing to address the Planning Commission on matters which are not on the public hearing, and that would be the Honey Creek Business Park, or seek information on other matters, such oral presentations shall be limited to 3 minutes, except for a representative or spokesman of an organization shall have 5 minutes. So typically we start with folks that are present and then move to the people that are online. So this would be public comment for anything other than the Honey Creek Business Park. Welcome.
Hello, my name is David Spicer. I live at 525 Baker Road, just south of the proposed Heritage Woods. And I would like to give my input on the last Planning Commission meeting on a proposed boulevard agreement at Heritage Woods Village. I don't recall the man's name on Zoom that night. I believe he might be the legal counsel for the Planning Commission. In my opinion, his take on the boulevard agreement is reckless, saying that the Planning Commission could go ahead with a final approval without a boulevard agreement just doesn't make sense to me. Why not get the boulevard agreement settled before the final approval? Why send it to the trustees without it being settled? I'd like to see the Heritage Woods Village project tabled until there is an agreement reached with the owners to the south of proposed boulevard with compensation. As of the last meeting, there has not been any contact between both parties regarding the boulevard agreement. I firmly believe that tabling this would finally get the two parties to negotiate a settlement. Thanks for your time on this matter.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else present who would like to make a comment? Welcome, and do sign in when you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, my name is Randy Rayford. I live at 7760 3rd Street in Dexter, and I'm gonna piggyback on what Mr. Spicer had to say. So this is an easement agreement that the developer provided to the property owners south of the boulevard. And so I was gonna ask that this subject also be elevated. You know, I think that your planner needs to discuss with the commissioners the necessity of this easement agreement. If it's not necessary, how can this development go ahead without it? If the property owners to the south refuse to enter into an easement agreement, you know, are they in jeopardy of having their property taken by eminent domain or some other legal action that could possibly happen? It just needs to be a conversation that has to happen between the planner and the commissioners so that everybody understands what's going on. And I agree 100% with Mr. Spicer that it would not be a good idea to give this final approval. It at least needs to be in a condition of approval. The Board of Trustees relies on you to review this to the nth degree, which I've sat through 3 or 4 meetings with you, and you have taken a lot on your shoulders. And so the Board of Trustees is gonna, if they see a final approval from you, they're gonna take that as a reason to rubber stamp this and everything must be in check. So the first time I came up here and spoke, I said that having control of all the affected properties on a site plan is a requirement. And I think if you look within your zoning ordinance, you would see that. It would be no different if I came forward with a site plan for this property and said, well, I'm sure that, you know, a Walmart's gonna look great here, and we'll figure out the details about ownership of the property later. It just doesn't work that way. And just a couple quick comments about what he's got in this easement agreement. And so it says this easement agreement does not authorize the installation of utilities or the making of other connections or curb cuts for or on behalf of the benefited parties being the property owners to the south. So what that means is that's a 15-acre chunk of land, and the planning commission needs to look at future land use. And what would be a very easy, you know, thing to consider is if somebody wants to buy that 15 acres. And so right now, the only way that somebody could develop that is they go up that 600 feet, they come back around to that service drive. If I wanted to go up that 600 feet and make a direct left into that big 15-acre property, I'm gonna have to talk to the developer about what it's gonna cost me to get a curb cut through there. And so the impact of this property is more for the, you know, more than just for the developer. You have to consider this. This should be an agenda item at the next meeting. Thank you.
Is there anyone else present who would like to address the planning commission?
Hi, Jillian Carey. I sent an email earlier, and I know it's been a busy couple of days, so it came in late. It has to do with, and Jan, thank you for your response, I just got that. Regarding the fire department, we are short-staffed and we are short on equipment. Chief Hood is doing an amazing job in getting the fire department up to where it should have been like 10 years ago. He's really great. I was at the fire department Halloween party yesterday and talking with the chiefs and the firefighters. So there's a house fire on Westview Way. I'm not sure if you are aware of that. Yeah, and that was a 2.5 story house. That day, there was a Saturday, it was a Wednesday night, early. So during that day, they were short staffed. They only had 2 on staff until 7 p.m. when 2 more came on, and it was a good thing because that's when the fire happened. So they go to the fire And they're on the ground trying to put this fire out. If they had a ladder truck, they could have put it out faster. There would have been less damage. And thank goodness that family of 5 got out in time. There was somebody up in the middle of the night. So a fire truck did, or a ladder truck we have a municipal aid agreement. A truck did show up, but once the fire trucks are in place, they can't move them. There's not a water hookup over there. So they have these big tankers that hold water. So that's an issue. So we have these developments, massive, I mean, really condensed developments. And there, it seems like, well, COVID really put a damper on a lot of them. So these developments are going to need safety. They're going to need fire. They're going to need especially emergency. Another thing is we have an ambulance that we can't use because we're short-staffed. A couple football Saturdays ago, we only had 4 ambulances for the whole county HVA. So in order for us to use our ambulance, we have to have somebody drive, somebody that is qualified to be in the back, and then we have to have our trucks manned. So I keep saying this, and I'm going to keep saying it. You're going to get sick of me, and there's other people that are also talking about this. Developers, when there's an agreement, there's also the community benefit. I just found out from a business owner that they're being mandated to for $1,000 statute. For what? Art? $1,000 towards, into the fire fund would be something that's helpful. But every development is going to need safety. There's no question about it. And especially when we have this, sorry, I'm going to talk about Heritage, or not Heritage, but this new one. But, Washtenaw County, we have the Zeeb and Jackson is the most dangerous intersection in the whole county. So having more developments, more traffic come in, we're going to need safety and fire and whatnot. So please, I don't see, if we're having community benefits from these developers, there's no reason that they cannot support our fire department. And not just a ladder truck, because we're going to need another building. We're going to need more equipment over time. So please consider that with every development. And one other thing, Doug, you look different tonight. It's Laura. And you look different. You have long hair. But there's a question of how many more parcels can be developed if we can get that information. Okay, thank you.
And just a slight clarification, the community benefit is included in PUDs. By right development, we don't have the capacity for that. And actually the trustees are the trustees are actually the negotiators for the development. Yeah.
They just had that at the last trustees meeting and they said it's the planning commission that does it.
Interesting.
Yeah, and the one business that is about the statute, it is a business. It's not a planned unit. It's not a multi-unit. It's a business. So
yeah, right. There are differences. Yeah. Thank you very much for
So
your comment.
we have required that we have one developer that's contributing to the cost of a ladder truck.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, through the PUD's agreements. Yeah, we just don't have the,
Madam Chairperson, I have a question. Just one of the statements was that Zeeb and Jackson's the most dangerous intersection in
Washtenaw County.
the county. I was just curious if you had a source for that.
well, it was an MLive article and it came through the sheriff department. Actually, it was in the past year that was.
There's no question it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to see some statistics on it. So that exists.
Right? Is there anyone? Oh, yes.
Just me,
right
just
here.
me out in front here. Hi, my name's Eugene Kett. I live at 609 Baker. That's the property directly to the south of the proposed boulevard. I just want to make it perfectly clear to Mr. Fink and anybody else that's listening. When you look at this, if this all pans through and goes through, that the legal description of my home changes, that I have to use this boulevard. And it's not that the boulevard's it's all owned by MDOT, it's owned by a private individual. So I'm changing my legal description to use a private piece of property to get to my home. I just want, and everything that's been mentioned about this has been shot down like it shouldn't be that big a deal. And I think it's kind of a huge deal. If any of you 5, somebody came to you and said, hey, we're putting a development in alongside of your home and you have to use our boulevard and that's just how it's gonna go. You're gonna be inconvenienced each time you come and go from your home. It's gonna lower the property value as it stands right now. You know, who would want to drive an extra whatever it is to enter their home? Kind of concerned about my health and my children. If something happens to me and this doesn't get developed, it stays residential and their inheritance goes down, we'll say.
If what doesn't get developed?
This, my property. The way it's set up, the
What does
best,
that have to do with the development?
my property value going down. If it stays residential, the value goes down. If somehow something gets approved there, they're saying that it has a better entrance if they have to use the boulevard, hook a south about halfway down. Which, if this were the case, it's an open-ended agreement with the owner of that development as to property, the use of that boulevard and the road maintenance. You know, how do they, where do you come up with that at? Who pays what percentage of that boulevard? Say Wendy's, McDonald's, everybody wants to go on that property. That's the 15 acres that we're talking about south of the boulevard. How do they know what they're getting into? Who comes up with the fee as to what it costs to have that road plow and for those people to use it? It's been open-ended, and basically I was told by the developer and everybody else involved with this, the attorney from West Bloomfield, that if I don't sign on, I'll get jammed down my throat and I'll get stuck with whatever I want to, or whatever they allow me to get. It just seems very unfair, and I've been, you know, I was here all 3 meetings when this got tabled, and Doug Lewan said no matter which way the next vote goes, it's going to the Board of Trustees, and I thought I was going to throw up over that. And the developer mentioned it was approved unanimously. It just seems like it's a play on words, some of this. Kind of hard to take a little bit.
What was approved unanimously?
The preliminary approval for this project through this board was approved. This is what the developer said, that it was approved unanimously in his last. Pardon me?
You can't believe everything you hear.
I heard it here in the
It
meeting.
was approved, but not unanimous.
I understand completely, and I do appreciate your vote on what your thoughts are on the area. But I don't know, it's just this has all been interesting for me, and I certainly appreciate everybody's time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your continuing to remind
Yeah,
us.
yes, I'm getting to know you guys very personally, it seems like. Thank you.
All right. Public comment, anyone else here present? All right, then we'll move online.
This is Martha Mayo. Can I allow her to talk? Sorry, I just moved.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm interested in the fact that the Planning Commission is considering revisions to the PUD ordinance right now. And in the past, I have spoken to limiting the possibility of limiting community sewers outside the water sewer district in the interest of limiting the amount of sewage that is put into the lower water tables. I understand that the community cannot limit construction of community sewers because that is in the state is in control of that. However, Scio can limit the use or permission for community sewers in the PUD ordinance, and I'm interested in recommending that happen. That in PUDs, you cannot have community sewers. That construction with PUD permissions can only take place within the sewer and water district. The reason I am concerned is I'm concerned about water quality for drinking water in the township. I don't know what will happen when they use the deep infusion process, which I understand is becoming talked about. What will happen when the water tables are infused with sewage? And so I would like to limit large-scale sewer facilities outside of the water sewer district, understanding that the state permits and we can't control what gets done outside of PUDs, but we certainly can control it within the PUD. So I would ask the Planning Commission to add this issue to the revisions that are under consideration for the PUD ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to clarify, these are the community wastewater facilities, right?
That's right. That what Heritage is going to have. And I think there's another one under consideration. Well, and in fact, if the Knights of Columbus property is developed, they are speaking about having a community sewer facility so as not to put their effluents into Honey Creek, which I approve of. I would hope they wouldn't put it into Honey Creek. But if they have a deep infusion facility for sewage for that property, 38 houses or so units, I'm worried about what happens to it once it goes down. I think we need to have a really careful hydrology study to understand what will happen to the effluent from a community sewer.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, we need to keep our time limits together. So thank you very much, Marty. Any other hands?
Yes, Pat Stein.
Good evening. Pat Stein, Z Road. I'm a longtime resident of Scio Township. I usually don't attend planning commission meetings, but you'll usually find me at the Board of Trustee meetings. And I want to talk to you tonight because you are going to introduce a new development that's in the beginning stages. So developments have been coming to the Board of Trustees meetings, even from the previous board. And as the developments come through, the question of affordable housing is brought up. Well, by the time it gets through the Planning Commission and recommended to move forward to the Board of Trustee meeting, affordable housing has not been addressed. And the previous board strongly recommended that the Planning Commission add to their checklist discussions of affordable housing with these new developments. So we have had a new board for 2 years now, and more developments are continuing to come through, and affordable housing is not being addressed. So it was strongly recommended by the previous board, but I don't know when a new board comes through, does previous recommendations just go to the wayside or what? But I would like to know what steps can be taken so that we can add to your checklist discussions on affordable housing. Now, my husband and I have property. We've lived here almost half a century. And the thought of the day we decide to downsize and there's nothing available that's affordable in Scio Township is a little concerning. I would like to see affordable housing available to all who wish to live in Scio Township. So is there a way that you can add that to your checklist before your recommendation goes to the Board of Trustees? Just a concern. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No one else has their hand raised.
Then I'll entertain a motion to close public comment.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Moore, supported by Commissioner Hyde. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Public comment is closed at 8:09. Thank you for everyone who participated. And right now, we're moving on to our public hearing. And this evening, we have a public hearing on a conditional use number 22002, PSP number 22015, HCDP, Honey Creek Business Park for mixed use with a drive-through. That's for a restaurant, I believe, and hotel. And just so people understand the public hearing process for a new project, we have the representative of the applicant give a presentation, and then we turn to each of our consultants with their recommendations, and then to the public, and then we close the public hearing during our discussion and deliberation. So with that, if the applicant wants to introduce themselves, and we'll.
Will do. My name is Mark Malkai. I work with A.R. Brower Construction Company. We're a design build commercial contractor located on Baker Road in Dexter. My primary responsibility at the company is to guide projects through what we call planning, pre-construction, and entitlement. And we are bringing forth a project that is just south of the intersection of Jackson and Zeeb Roads on property that was part of the book manufacturing facility, which you can see from I brought an aerial with the context around the building, which I don't think was in your packet, but I just brought that for some extra reference. And the development that we're proposing is on land that's zoned I-2, excuse me, which I think is certainly appropriate for the existing use of the book manufacturing company. And it's also in the Jackson Road Overlay District. And we're coming forth with a proposal to get conditional use approval from the Planning Commission to do a 4-building development, an 8,000 square foot retail building, a 25,000 square foot, we call it flex office, sort of light industrial building, 13,000 square foot office building, and then a 4-story hotel, 122 rooms. There is a representative of Concord Development here tonight. If you guys have questions specific to the hotel, Paul Duncan's his name, he's here. He can answer questions if necessary. So one of the rules, and I know you guys have received the consultant letters, and I don't want to, I think they're going to give at least a bit of a presentation and an overview, so I don't want to repeat what Laura's going to say, but we are utilizing one of our functions, or 2 of them, the flex office and office building are allowed in the underlying zoning of industrial. And the master plan calls for, in the Jackson Road Overlay District, to allow for these types of mixed uses. And we feel it's an appropriate use of this property. And again, maintaining one of the underlying uses of the existing zoning, and then throwing in other mixed uses that fit along with the Jackson Road Overlay District and the master plan. So with that, I would just entertain questions or comments, or update you with any information you may need.
Yeah, go ahead. And just a reminder that this is the conditional use as opposed to any kind of site plan.
Oh, yeah, that's
So-
important to note. I mean, the process is get the conditional use first. The board, you guys would recommend, if you so desired, to the trustees, then the trustees approve the conditional use, I believe. And then we would get more into the site plan approval piece, which, we've only done very schematic, conceptual drawings at this time. Maybe even a little more than what would be required for the conditional use, but we wanted to provide you with enough information to get a feel for what we're really proposing to do, so Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, so I was just gonna ask you, as far as your vision is today, do you envision that the hotel would be on Z? As I understand it, you're not using the Jackson Road entrance, you're using a Z Road entrance. Is that fair to say?
That's correct. Depending on how the future of the existing industrial building is used, there certainly would be inter-site circulation. So the access point into this site is on an existing right-of-way right here, which you guys all know it. This is the vacant side of the property on the south. And this is the occupied piece, so that's an existing curb cut. And you could circulate through the site onto Jackson Road. So it's probably not that conducive for just this first phase of the development. But as the other phases get done, we feel it's important to have that interconnectivity potential.
So, yeah, and so do you envision the hotel being on Z Road?
I'm sorry, yes.
Or do you envision the hotel being in the background of this property or?
It wouldn't be right on the road. In fact, you can see the footprint of it here. And it's actually behind the car wash and the Burger King.
Okay.
So in a similar way that the Holiday Inn is behind the commercial uses on the road, it's very similar where it's behind, it's a taller building and it's behind those uses, so. Everyone at the hotel will have a clean car and a bacon cheeseburger.
So as alluded to, ongoing phases. And so the larger building that is off of Jackson Road is going to be part of the phase 2?
We don't have anything in the works for that right now. And you know how long that's been, I don't personally know exactly how many years it's been vacant, but I shouldn't say vacant, there are some sublet tenants in it. Palmer Moving and Storage has storage in the building. We use it for some of our miscellaneous construction, staging and storage, but at this time, there are no specific plans for that property.
And they use, I don't know how much they do use it, but the truck entrance is going to be shared with the new developments that you're talking about tonight?
Are you talking about the truck access point back here?
Oh, I'm talking about coming off of Z Road on the.
Here?
Right. That's
Yeah, I mean, this is will
It's labeled
continue to
truck
be
entrance.
shared,
Yeah,
if that's what your question is,
that's what I.
between the two sites. You can see where it connects here. There's a small open air building here,
There's loading docks.
and there's loading docks here. So yes, this will continue to be the access for the new development on the south side of the existing.
Sure, quick. So is the restaurant on Z Road?
Yes.
Okay. And
So
then what
it's-
kind of restaurant is it?
Well, it's speculative right now. So the building is set up with the potential to have 4 tenants in it. That's an 8,000 square foot building. So, you know, it's retail centers like the ones across the street are basically like 2,000 square foot strips, basically. And this is the same. So if you can imagine that, there's the Jimmy John's, there's a Starbucks. It probably would be those types of uses. Obviously, they're not gonna.
Also be multiple
It's
restaurants.
multi-tenant retail, and we do not have any specific tenants signed up at this time. But we think there's a market for it, you know. You can't get a sense of that from what's going on across the street, so.
Any chance we could talk you out of the drive-through aspect of it?
I mean, we've designed it, you know, to have adequate stacking. I know that the Starbucks has some issues. We've designed this drive-through to have, I don't know how many cars exactly, but, you know, we would want to have a situation where the stacking is adequate. And I know that it kind of peels out into the Meyer driveway right now, the Starbucks stuff, but
So that would be
it's
your
not
only entrance.
leased, so I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt you. It may or may not be. We just want to make sure and have the provision for that at this time.
Right.
So the circulation is in here and come around and stack in here
Yeah.
and exit here. This is exit
Right
only.
only, correct.
But for the entire complex, the entrance and exit would be, except for that,
Except for that exit there.
That's just exit only.
that would
not
be
the-
the entrance and exit for the entire
Correct.
complex.
Correct.
Including the truck traffic. Whatever that is for the building.
Yeah, it's pretty light.
Or
At the moment. At the moment, and, you know, I think trucks do enter from the Jackson Road side as well. So.
Commissioner Freeman, did you have another point about the drive-through, other than stacking, just?
Well, yes, thank you. Yes, I would like to make efforts to reduce car-dependent infrastructure, and I'd say that drive-throughs certainly only add to car-dependent infrastructure. And so the more we can start distancing ourselves from things like drive-throughs, the more we can start making access to spaces like this friendly to people not in cars. Because another question I would probably ask is about how do pedestrians move around here? This looks like a scary place for me to navigate with my 2-year-old son on foot. These are the kinds of things I'm gonna be.
Sure, and I know, you know, when we do get into the site plan stage, that will be a big topic, you know, pedestrian circulation and access and some of the other requirements in the ordinance that obviously we would need to meet. The hotel has pedestrian circulation all the way around it, like a typical hotel would, and parking all the way around it so people can get to their closest entrance.
Yeah, can they walk to the businesses?
Yeah, I mean, that's gonna be you'll see a little bit more detail on that. I think the site plan in your package shows some of the pedestrian circulation across parking areas. But yeah, I mean, obviously that's along, I don't know if Zeve is completely sidewalked, I assume it is, at least further south. And we would obviously continue that.
it's showing your view.
Yeah, I mean, there would definitely be a sidewalk along our frontage and, but at this point in time, you know, unless there's, specific restrictions, we, you know, we're showing the drive-through, you know, as part of our schematic plan, so.
Laura, go through your report.
Sure. So I just want to reiterate what Mark said, that the site is zoned I2 General Industrial, and it is part of the Jackson Road Overlay District. And as such, mixed-use developments may be considered in the Jackson Road Overlay District as either a PUD or a conditional use. And so the applicant has chosen conditional use in this case. And in doing so, permitted uses contained within the C2, C3, OS, and I1 district may be allowed anywhere in the JROD if included as part of an overall mixed-use development. The use permitted by the underlying zoning district must also be included in the mixed-use development. And as Mark stated, there is currently manufacturing, warehouse, office uses on this site. We did note that there currently are 2 separate parcels. The Zebe Road frontage is under the same ownership as the back portion of the larger parcel, and those would have to be combined as a condition of conditional use and site plan approval. We note that the surrounding area contains a mix of industrial, commercial, and residential uses. The master plan also calls for mixed-use commercial in this area, and all of the uses would coincide with that future land use designation. The applicant notes that there are woodland, wetlands, and floodplain areas potentially on this portion, the southern portion that would be developed. We would, of course, look into that much more thoroughly during site plan review. Additionally, there don't appear to be any essential services or facility issues, but those would also be reviewed during site plan review. The conditional use standards are in my report, the 6 that we look at. We find that the proposed uses would be harmonious with the surrounding area where various existing commercial, office, and industrial uses are already located. And again, the site development will be reviewed in depth during site plan review. We also note that there are a couple potential variances, at least one. The hotel having 4 stories and a building height of 45 feet. The lodging facilities are allowed in the C3 zoning district, but the maximum height is 2 stories and 30 feet. So a variance would be needed from the zoning board of appeals in order to accommodate the 4-story, 45-foot building height. Of course, that would happen during site plan review as well. Additionally, during site plan review, we'll have to ensure that the site meets the Jackson Road overlay design standards. We want to note any parking or shared parking arrangements that would also play a role in this development. So we would recommend, based on the comments of this analysis, that the Planning Commission determine whether the conditional use standards have been met and satisfied, and that the one condition be the properties would be combined.
Good evening, everyone. We recommended approval in our letter dated October 4th. We just did a preliminary review at this time, and the proposed use is anticipated to be compatible with the existing infrastructure. We did not provide any site plan comments in our letter, but those will be provided during the site plan review phase in the next step of the process. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. But that's really all I've got for tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. And we'll go to public comment.
There is no public comment.
Well,
No,
I mean,
for the
public, for the public hearing, yeah. So is there anyone that's present that would like to address the planning commission? All right, then we'll go online.
Kathleen Brandt.
Okay.
Hi, this is Kathleen Brandt, Scio citizen. I want to thank Commissioner Human for some of his insightful comments about pedestrian usage on this site. I think that's well reasoned. I also want to point out an anachronism between this property, this developer, and the Crossroads project that has already been approved preliminary. For Crossroads, the developer said that office use was untenable for him based only on his own market studies. And in this case, this developer is seeking usage for office space. So I thought that was, I think that's something that the Planning Commission should consider when it comes to Crossroads, that essentially you gave that developer a free pass, we'll say. They had a zoning that was only for office and whatever else, industrial. And based on that developer's feedback, you sort of bailed them out. It was not Scio Township's problem that they had bought property for specific use, and they claimed that they could not sell that project, and instead they made it rental units, which I would expect have much higher rental value. So I'm concerned about that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen.
No one else has their hand raised.
Just wait, just to be sure. We're good? Yep. Oh, just out of curiosity, how many people do we have online?
We have 8 attendees and Stacy.
All right, with that, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Moved by Commissioner Hyde. Second. Supported by Commissioner Moore. I keep looking that way. I don't mean to do that. All right.
Just show.
Yeah. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Yeah.
You're closing the hearing?
Public hearing, yes.
Will have.
What's that?
We have.
Oh, yeah, we have our deliberation after the public hearing.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you.
yeah, no, I
Read my
don't shut
mind.
you off.
When we say aye, you have to step.
All right, so everyone, those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. We closing the public hearing at 8:29. So, questions for Mr. Mel?
I just have a brief question. That entrance, I know where that entrance is, sir.
Yeah.
That's not lined up with the traffic light that was put in.
The traffic light is right here
Okay,
at the exit to Meyer,
Meyer,
entry
okay.
exit to Meyer and across from the
gotcha.
bank. This is the next intersection. It is an existing curb cut. This kind of superimposes on top of
Gotcha.
it.
Can you
Okay.
get the camera on that? It's probably a little late now.
Well, I think there was an aerial in the packet and a little sketch in the packet. So that was-
Actually, yeah. Carlisle Workman drawings show the parcel.
I know it's in there. It's just, the public couldn't see it.
Where you're pointing, yeah,
Oh, I'm
that's
sorry.
some of the difficulties of
No.
a hybrid meeting.
Not your problem, not your fault.
Yeah, I mean, it could be brought up on the screen, I guess. I don't know how you guys do that, but.
Do you want to talk a little bit why you chose to do conditional use as opposed to a PUD?
We feel like this development is right in the, strike zone and the intentions of the master plan and the different types of uses, and it falls into a category that we feel like it meets the conditional use requirements. And it's a more straightforward, preliminary and final site plan approval process, so. And we feel like it's compatible with surroundings.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Do you see a lot of demand for office space here?
It's not a huge building. It's 13,000 square feet, and we feel really strongly that we'll find a user for it. It's a beautiful spot, actually. I don't know if, you've been down that driveway, but.
Is it multiple offices or just the one?
It could be. There are no specific tenants for that building yet either, so.
Your drawings show that there are several different units. Is that?
The building, the mixed use, the flex office building could be a multi-tenant building. It's 25,000 square feet. So again, it's similar to a regular retail layout where there's like 5,000 square foot tenants. On one side would be sort of their offices. In the back, in this case, the east side would be an overhead door for some, loading and unloading and just sort of light storage, so on grade. So all of those three buildings could have multiple tenants in them, yet to be determined, but we feel like it's a great development and there'll be demand for it, so.
Commissioner Hyde.
I see from the preliminary submission, from the submission and from your presentation, that it would appear the hotel is further along. Is it going, then either you don't have any renters for the other building?
We do have a rendering, there's the elevational renderings of
You don't have renters, you don't have.
renters.
Going to move in
I'm
tomorrow.
sorry.
Whereas you.
I misunderstood.
You, see, man.
We do not.
And the hotel does have a management team, it sounds like.
Yeah, so,
Is that going to go in first? Is that what you see? Or is this going?
I think that we would do all of the, at least the site infrastructure, the grading, the detention system. All of that would happen, the site work would certainly all happen at once. And I think the demand is gonna be there for the rest of it, so it probably would, we're not gonna bring in trucks and build everything all at once probably, but I think it would be I don't know, I can't speak for the hotel, would it be your intention to
Yeah, as soon as site work is ready, we would
As soon as we're
start
approved, we're ready to
construction.
go. So.
When so in the next phase, in the next step, I should say, it would be the preliminary plan. So this is just the,
This is just the,
the
uses
the conditional use,
to allow this.
and then the site plan would be submitted. Well, the plans would be submitted, preliminary plans, in which case all the prep for the site, but also the buildings and.
Yeah, and this could change. I mean, this particular.
Sure, it might not look like this when it comes, when you get the drawings in front of us, it might look different.
We feel like pretty strongly that it will be, is it okay for me to talk, Matt, during the public hearing?
Well,
Okay.
yeah,
If you're asking me
we're
questions.
asking you questions.
I don't know, I've
Yes,
been in these
obviously,
meetings
that's
where
fine.
it's like, that was a question.
Yeah, the planning commission, but.
Yeah, okay. I don't want to-
Through me.
Hear what you had to say.
But, I mean, we think it's a really good site layout, and we think that, I don't think the hotel would go in another location, and the retail needs to go along the road, so the other two uses, you know, as you get further away, you're sort of getting more out of the public necessity to be on the road, and so we feel like, but could there be minor changes as we bring the site plan forward? Sure. I mean, we have done enough engineering to look at some of the storm water drainage, and, you know, you have to make sure your site can be developed. You know, you take the steps, and this is like the first one, so.
Go ahead.
Where I was going with that was, it sounds like every, I'm gonna say it this way, every square foot of the property is accounted for for buildings, parking, or stormwater retention. I see no ungraded part of it. And so all the trees are going, if I'm reading this right. And this will be stripped bare. I mean, landscaping is gonna have to be addressed when we get there. That's not now, but I see a pretty tight parking lot area. I don't see a whole lot of space for landscaping, and as Commissioner Human pointed out, pedestrian traffic is going to have to be taken into account. There's a lot that's packed in here for this number of buildings and the amount of drainage or, you know, stormwater management. So there's a lot to be looked at.
Absolutely.
In terms of circulation, pedestrian circulation, and trees.
Yeah, meeting the ordinance, the landscaping and so forth, sure.
I know we're not addressing it tonight, but that's packed in there.
Yeah.
Other questions, Commissioner?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So is this going to be built in phases? I'm still not clear with the 4 buildings. Are they going to be built at once, or are you looking at possibly targeting the hotel first, and then as demand, you're going to be continuously building the office and the
We haven't talked about phasing it. Honestly, our discussions have been that we would do the entire development at once. The different buildings will probably have different durations. And I haven't looked at the ordinance to see how the phasing is incorporated into your site plan approval process. If we come forward with a site plan, you know, we may show phases on the site plan submission. I don't know if that's a requirement, or I guess I'm asking. Yeah, and we're gonna have to put more thought into the schedule, basically, the sequence of all of it.
And one of the callers did mention, because we've had a big project that went from office to residential, would those, like the flex space and the office building, would there be a potential for converting that to residential in the future if for whatever reason it's unoccupied?
We hadn't thought of that. I mean, we're marketing it exactly this way. And so I assume if that happened, that would be a change in use that would require coming back to the planning commission. And I don't know that for sure, but it also would, if those two buildings were not on the site, it kind of conflicts with having uses that are part of the underlying zoning. Those are the two buildings that do that. I don't know if I don't think there's residential uses in the industrial zoning. So that's kind of one of the triggers, is to make sure we include those uses. And we think that there's a demand.
Your studies have shown there's a demand.
Yeah.
For office space.
Yeah, this is a little different, to address that, this proposed office space is a lot different. It's a smaller building, not looking at the large, it's a different, I don't know if you're thinking class A or B or whatever, but it's not that class super A that was being proposed for Crossroads. So it is a little different in its way. A question, what are the uses that from a conditional use because I know sometimes the drive-through is a conditional use. I'm just trying to figure out if, but in this case, because it's I2, it's permitted and
I read it, but I'll say it again. The uses as part of a mixed use, you can have C2, C3, OS, and so drive-throughs are permitted in C3.
Gotcha.
And the lodging is permitted in C3. And so those would be allowed as a conditional use as part of this mixed use development, but they would still have to meet the standards of a drive-through and of the lodging facility under that C3 zoning. That's why they still would need a variance for the height for the hotel, and they would still have to meet stacking spaces and all other conditions of a drive-through.
Procedurally.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Procedure, yeah.
I just was curious about the variance. If they're coming in since they need to get that extra story, they go to the zoning board of appeals, what are they, 2 stories or?
2-story variance.
Two-story variance. I thought it was 3 stories were permitted and
No,
they were.
2 stories are permitted.
2 stories, okay, so it's 2 stories. Do they go to the zoning board of appeals before they come back? Or do we approve this subject to a variance by the zoning board of
So the
appeals?
conditional use would be approved. And I don't think you have to do that for the use per se, but when the site plan comes back, I mean, if they change I know they're proposing a 4-story as part of the conditional use approval. Maybe they go back and say, we're not sure we're gonna do 3 stories instead. At the time that the site plan comes before you, you would table it or wait for the zoning board of appeals to make their determination on the variance, and it would come back for you for final determination.
Yeah, just what you just said, tonight, when we approve it, we're approving it with the use, but not necessarily with the dimensions.
Correct.
So we're not granting any.
Correct.
variances.
You're saying as that you are considering this specific mixed use project with the square footages that they noted, that you are allowing them to move forward to the next step, which would be the site plan. If between now and then, let's say one of the buildings totally changed, maybe the office building went away and some other use, they'd have to come back and modify the uses.
And have another public hearing.
Yes.
And is the hotel, what kind of hotel is it?
It is an extended stay hotel,
It's a what?
extended stay.
And I'm not sure I know what that means.
So we cater to those folks, construction workers, relocated workers, people looking for housing that may be trying to find a house in a competitive market that need a short-term rental, but don't want to sign a 1-year-long lease. They want to stay for 1 week, 3 weeks, 3 months. But it does not cater to the nightly guest. It is more of the long-term guest. On average, we have about a 28-day length of stay.
Is it the extended stay brand?
No, it is Choice brand.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, if you wanna.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very
Discussion.
concerned about the entrance. We got a mess. I start by, I mean, we had to put in a light there, not we, but, and you got, I mean, other than the drive-through, you're going out, I just would like you to consider another exit. Now you got a problem because you're winced in there because, you know, there's Burger King and I don't know how you're gonna get that, but I see that as a big problem. And I have a problem approving things that I don't know what I'm approving for. I get how the system is set up, you don't have to explain that to me, but in my mind, I might vote differently if I knew what some more detail. Because I am very concerned about the traffic that's gonna come. Let's presume it's gonna be a successful complex, so it's gonna be many people coming in and out, not to mention not just the people that are gonna be working, but people that are just coming in to buy a burger or whatever. So there's gonna be a lot of traffic on that road. And I mean, so anyway, that's my 2 cents, and I would be in favor of tabling this. This is a big project that I see that Carlisle Wortman memo was dated back in September, and we're just now getting it. See, it's dated.
It was October 21st.
Yeah.
September 30th. Oh, I see. Those are different dates. I see. I see. I'm sorry. Okay.
Just
Go,
the way I
Commissioner Hyde.
understand this, they're asking for us to consider this use, not this design. And we're noticing a lot of things that we'd like to see in the planning phase addressed differently, or at least we're seeing problems that might develop. So tonight we're looking at this.
I get that. I'm not confused about the process.
Okay.
I'm making a comment on the process, the fact that I have to make a vote on a conditional use. And from what I understand, the restaurants are on Zebro. There's one entrance in and one entrance out, other than this one exception with the drive-through, that I presume everybody won't be privy to that exit. And, you know, it just seems, in some ways, the cart before the horse, because I can't go back and undo my vote. I can't take away conditional use once I give it to them. That's what I'm criticizing. That's what I'm pointing out that I'm uncomfortable with. But I get the process and through it a couple of times, and I'm uncomfortable with it each time. It's not you or your specific project.
Yeah, no, I mean, there are 2 processes here for a development like this. One is the conditional use, which, you know, is once you have the conditional use, it's sort of a by right development. And at the end, you have to get a ZBA approval for basically what is a self-inflicted hardship of the 2 stories. And it just, being a member of the ZBA, that's going to be a tough hurdle, just knowing that. So a PUD option, knowing that, you know, as a developer, PUDs come with a lot more process and a lot more negotiation. However, I think this site, just because you've got, you know, the woodlands, you've got the potential of doing, you know, connecting a little bit stronger in between, you know, with along to Zeb, actually, which would, I think, you know, help a development in that area. So you have the 2 options of Zeb and Jackson. And my concern is that for the PUD, as the planning commission is, heard have a lot more, there's just a lot more discussion between a developer and and the planning commission. And that's my concern, with this particular, because it is it's a larger development. And
So could you just say that once we've approved if we approved the conditional use, we would not be able to influence
you could influence.
foot traffic, which was brought up?
It could, but it becomes a by right development.
They can just do what they want.
No, they can't just do what they want. I mean, they have to meet the standards of the ordinance, which includes the Jackson Road Overlay District standards. So there are design standards, and there actually is discussion in the Jackson Road Overlay about integrating pedestrian connectivity throughout the site. So for those things. As far as driveway placement, traffic, we can talk about that. A lot of that is going to be, and Stacy can chime in if she wants, a lot of that's going to be reviewed by the road commission, and they're going to dictate where those driveways are located. Probably there will be a traffic study that will be required as part of this development. So we're just not there yet. This is the initial phase. So,
I get that.
yeah.
And so I just kind of wanted to buttress my remarks, but so that it's, abundantly clear. I'm looking at the conditional use standards and I'm focusing on number 4 and number 5, that the proposed use will not be detrimental, hazardous, or disturbing to the existing or future neighboring uses, persons, property, or public welfare. Traffic, inordinate amount of traffic can be very disruptive, detrimental, and certainly disturbing. And number 5, that the proposed use will not create additional requirements and public costs to public facilities. There was another public cost when those outbuildings, Starbucks went in there because the road commission had to put a light in there, if I'm not mistaken. So that was an additional public cost. It was the right thing to do because we didn't need any more accidents, but they came about after it was built. Nobody thought about that. And now we know what Ziegler Road looks like. And so we have we on this planning commission, and we should be on the board of trustees, that we know about some of the traffic patterns, et cetera. So I just kind of wanted to make it clear where my remarks were coming from in terms of the statutory analysis. Thank you.
I have a question. So I'm looking at the report from R.L. Wortman, and I'm confused by this language. It says on the second page of the report, which is page 7 of the document, it says that all mixed-use developments within the J-ROD shall be considered a conditional use and be reviewed pursuant to conditional use review. A use permitted by the underlying zoning district must be included in mixed-use development. So I see all of that, but so I guess my question is, how is the C3 or the C2 considered a by right development if we were to do a conditional approval for this?
In the ordinance, in the J-RED district, it says that as long as there is a use that's allowed in the underlying district, that the C2, permitted use in the C2 or permitted use in the C3, OS, and LI can be part of a mixed use development that is approved as a conditional use.
So it becomes by right if we make a conditional use?
No, I mean, you're approving the conditional use. So you're approving very specifically the uses that they're proposing, right? You're not allowing for all C2 uses and all C3 uses as part of this approval. Only the uses that they're proposing specifically as part of this development. So the 13,000 square foot or whatever it is office flex building, the 8,000 square foot retail with drive-through, very specific uses that you're approving as part of this mixed use development.
But there are no public benefit requirements.
No, there are no public benefit requirements. It's not a rezoning of property like a PUD.
Thank you for that.
I mean, I would be more interested in seeing the drive-through removed as a conditional, as a conditional use and made into something that wasn't a car-centric business approach. Otherwise, I'm happy with this kind of development. I think this is something we need, but I would just like to get away from the drive-through and hope we could get something a little more pedestrian friendly development. That's my position.
And of course, these restaurants, they like the drive-through because we're living in pandemic times.
Well, yes, and I mean, everything around here is built for the car, so.
Everything around there is right near the freeway exit. So you're gonna get a lot of traffic for people who want to get off the road, quick get back on. Now, there will be others from the town, township too, but. And the nearby just south of here of this is residential. So there will be foot traffic from there. Just need to make sure it circulates right. But your point is the Burger King and the Wendy's that are right next door practically are of the same ilk.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want a Burger King or Wendy's there if we were voting on that today, but we're not. But all we can do is stop the next one from being built, hopefully. Those do belong by the interstate, you're right, and we're a little too close to the interstate for my taste, but we're not serving the people of the interstate, we're serving the people of Scio.
Would this hotel be, if, just hypothetically, if it's denied at the zoning board of appeals, would you build a 2-story hotel or is it going to be withdrawn? And is that part of what happens then to the conditional use? If in fact they decide we're going to pull the hotel out of this development, they have to come back?
So yeah, there's a couple options. They could come back with a different use for consideration. They could change from a conditional use to a PUD. In order to rezone it to negate that need for that variance, they could request the additional height as part of that plan unit development. And of course, there's the community benefit aspect that goes along with that. But I think any number of things could happen.
It just seems, I'll just throw it out there, that this probably should be a PUD. It seems more appropriate to ask, to get, community benefits as opposed to what's the hardship for, it's self-imposed. You're asking for 4 stories when only 2 are allowed. I guess I haven't, and again, I'll temper that because I don't know what your argument is until you go and say, well, this is our hardship, but you're building a new building, so it should probably fall under PUD zoning.
Yeah, I don't know the intent of the way the language is written, but we have opted for there's 2 options for doing a mixed use development. We know that PUD or what we're bringing forward. So we feel like it is a more straightforward way to go about it. I mean, there's no 2 ways about it. You understand that as well as anybody else. So, and we're meeting the ordinance, and I don't know the hotel across the highway, what process they went through for that in terms of the height of it. I don't know, but there's some precedent for, I think it has a lot to do with, access around the building and so forth, which we have, but that's the way that the ordinance is set up to go through the process in these steps, the conditional use first, and then site plan approval with the zoning board of appeals piece afterwards.
So just so that I'm clear, Laura, I think I hear you saying that, let's say if the conditional use is approved by us and then it's approved by the board of trustees. If they wanted to amend the use, they didn't get the variance, let's say, they would come back to us as a planning commission or to the board of trustees?
They would come back here and then have to go to the board of trustees. Yeah. They would always come here first for a change like that.
Commissioner Hyde.
I realize this is not being reviewed tonight, and so you may not have already looked at turning radii for emergency vehicles, for instance. But have you?
Yeah, I believe, I'm not.
That's how I see it from these plans, how a fire truck would get into the.
That our engineer did. I apologize for coming through the drawings here.
It isn't up for our review right now.
But it will, yeah, obviously it will. I think it's been looked at in terms of garbage trucks and fire trucks circulation.
Okay. Because obviously, that's critical. I feel that this has got a lot of building space and parking space packed into this area. And if you haven't taken that into account, it'll eliminate some of your parking space.
Yeah, no, they have, I mean, there's been layout of some of the parking, but I don't see the exact diagram of that, but obviously it would be in our submission for site plan.
So where are people at here?
Just tabling it, just doesn't sound like it moves anything forward, right? It just means we're gonna talk about it later, but nothing's gonna change between now and then.
From that, yes, that's right. I think I would agree with that.
I would be in favor of whatever action's required to initiate a change to the proposal. Whether that means denying it or whatever, I don't know the process. You guys don't fill it in.
Because of the drive-through?
Yeah, the drive-through specifically, I think that's my biggest gripe. Otherwise, I mean, I think that I wouldn't mind seeing something done there. It seems like it's in the right vein. That's my opinion. Just don't make the drive-through.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Can I just interject that if you were to make an approval or a denial, you would have to cite one of the criteria, your findings specifically. So whether you're approving it and you're saying it meets all of the standards outlined in 36-224, 1 through 6, or whether you're pointing out that it doesn't meet one or more of those, that should be part of your motion.
36-224.
Mm-hmm. It's also in my report on page 5. I don't know what page that is in your packet.
So, yeah, it's basically, those are the standards that you have to find or.
So in your experience, Commissioner Culbertson,
Yes.
is this the type of stepwise process that you would expect to see for this kind of development, where we're shown the intent and asked for the use as applied to that intent without having, I mean, obviously the details are going to follow and they have to, if they change the square footage by 1,000 square feet, that doesn't change. I mean, does that change the approval? So if when they develop their plans, they want anything different, we'll have to go through the same thing all over again.
Yeah, so they're committing, they're committing to a certain square footage and certain uses in a conditional.
And the layout of it might
change. The layout could
entrances,
change
exits.
dramatically. We're just saying these uses, not even the number of parking at this point, they just have to meet it's just this square footage on the site with these uses.
The retention ponds, I mean, they have to be in roughly that area that, okay, so all that gets calculated later. And get shown to us at that time.
Right, this may not be the best layout, but they have to have that same, it could get pushed and made one building. I mean, it's.
Then they have to start over, sure.
No, well, I mean, what, all we're saying is on the site, you have this square footage of this type, this type, this type. And I don't think it's even, it doesn't have to be in, it could be in one building, it could be in two buildings, it could be
Okay.
any kind of configuration.
Okay, so they're flexible on that, in that aspect, but the usage and the square foot of each individual usage is locked in by this process.
And it, and Commissioner Human, I think as much as I really, I think looking a little more, as we're looking at those sustainability things, I think this brings up a good point about the drive-throughs and where in the township it's appropriate to have drive-throughs versus not. And I think that needs to be a part of that list. I think I would say, I think this one is probably close enough to the highway that, but I would really want it to be pedestrian friendly too. That you've got to have both. You can't just have, and especially with the hotel and, the longer stay and so forth, having make this a true mixed use development where the mixed uses are reinforcing each other.
Take into account the neighboring businesses as well, because people will be walking back and forth.
Oh, sure. No, I agree. So.
Yeah, and we don't
Uses
have
are-
extended stay in the township either, so we don't have an extended stay, so that is a little different.
Is that correct? There are no competitors?
Well, we only have one hotel.
Oh,
That's not to say that we might not have more when we're finally done with it, but.
All right, so, and I do think it's gonna be a rough haul with ZBA, just heads up.
for the 4 stories, which might bring up a PUD submission.
Anyway. But what we need to do is,
The chair is ready to entertain a motion.
Yes, I'm ready to entertain a motion.
I do have like a handwritten draft.
Okay.
Good for you.
Sorry, I was ill prepared this evening, but Chris or
What's
someone
the-
else would be interested.
Oh, it's a long one, huh?
Yeah,
Oh, wow, you did all that?
Yeah, working hard for
So,
you.
before we do this though.
Yes.
36224,
Yes,
those are the conditions that we're we have to make sure that it meets all of those, right?
right.
So A4 says that the proposed use will not be detrimental, hazardous, or disturbing to the existing or future neighboring uses, persons, property, or the public welfare. I mean, I think that I would make an argument that drive-throughs are detrimental to the future public welfare of Scio Township. I guess it depends on the definitions of detrimental and future public welfare.
Let's see, it's not disturbing, since there are uses around it like that.
Hazardous is also another thing I would say it is, but I would say it also is hazardous. Especially exiting. People tend to be looking in the direction of oncoming traffic, not really to their right. You have somebody walking up the sidewalk the other way.
Mr. Mark Mulberry, did I get your Mark?
Okay.
How about Mark? I'm sorry. Did you say that people exiting would have to turn right?
Correct. From the drive.
Oh, that
From
other
the main
exit,
exit, they could go left.
but the main, yeah, that's what I was referring to, so they could.
So it's left or right from the main exit.
Wherever it is, we haven't done the traffic
Yeah,
analysis.
because the whole traffic
Okay.
piece is
That have
still.
to occur.
So again, we're focusing on use
Yep.
and square footage.
Yep.
And, you know, I think in this area, we want to support, you know, a reasonable density. So,
Yeah, I think, you know, the project itself, I mean, it makes sense for that area. I mean, the mixed use, it makes sense. For commercial, it makes sense. So I'm not sure what you could put in there. Well, let me say it a different way. I'm basically concerned from what I know about the project thus far. And I live off of Zebra Road and I travel Zebra Road a lot. So I know what the traffic patterns are like there. And when I'm coming out of, going to the pharmacy, which is a little more north of where your project would be, I mean, I gotta be careful and I gotta be quick. Whatever I do, mostly going left. And so I know what it's like, and so I'm anticipating, you know, traffic being a problem. Now, I don't put a lot of weight in traffic studies. Obviously, the traffic study for the Meyer outbuildings, Starbucks and all that, they said it would be a problem, and then it was a problem. So I don't, I just don't put a lot of weight in those. And we all know it was a problem because they had put a light in there. So we had several accidents, but the way the property is configured is limiting too, because you're contiguous to these other buildings that are front, that are right on Zeeb, so you don't, there's no way you can put a road in another road. I was just trying to think, how would you even put another option for those that come in and exit? But you're sort of landlocked, so to speak, because of those other parcels, so it's a problem.
and I would say, I think my opinion is that singling out this one when we have a bunch of other drive-throughs along there is tough. And that we really need to address that like holistically within the township with the drive-through thing. It's just, I mean, I agree with you that you wanna, you know, start changing, but it's tough to single this particular one out when you're, you know, across the street and on all sides, you've got drive-throughs.
That is a deficiency in the township, something called planning, because it all falls on us as we bring up in different projects to discuss. And we don't have a central planner. We have a consultant, but we don't have a in-house policy-driven planner. So it's one of our.
Commissioner Hyde.
When we have businesses going in next business, we can require that the parking lots be connected. So.
Well, we can't require, but I mean, but.
Probably could. But the answer is no.
I mean, you can't require it, you can.
You know, we can ask for shared access, and when there is a vacant property next to a developed property, that's much easier, you know, if they're developing and we know the next one will come. If you're talking about the already developed properties along Zeeb Road, that's much more difficult. I mean, we can ask that they approach those existing developments for shared access, but we cannot require private ownership properties to
Can we get around some of our concerns for circulation and entrances and exits?
Well, that would all be discussed during site plan. I mean,
Sure.
those are all conversations.
But we need to get.
Yeah, who set up that process? Never mind. It's slapping me in the face all the time, that's why.
If I could throw something in, you know, one benefit to having a development with all this entire parcel and the 4 separate buildings and uses is that we will have that vehicular interconnectivity, you know, where the parcels aren't being split off and sold separately.
Within your development.
Yeah, within ours.
It's not getting through the Zippy Car Wash.
No, I
We're
understand.
not getting through is it Wendy's or is it Burger King? It's not getting through theirs.
Right.
Nor is it getting in through the north exit, which take you up to the light. the north through here and get to the light.
Oh, because of the interconnection to the bank.
Right, but if there were requirements.
The other thing about our uses is that they are somewhat offset in terms of their, the time of day that they get used, the office and so, not to get into the weeds of the traffic.
How do the Jackson Road overlay design standards affect this process, this situation?
Well, they are allowing the conditional use to happen as part of the mixed use development. But other than that, those standards are reviewed during site plan review. The design of the building, the pedestrian circulation,
What the buildings look like.
Yeah.
It's all mandated by the ordinance.
Landscaping, that type of thing.
The pedestrian plaza, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff?
location of parking.
Okay, does that come before this commission as well?
Is this with the site plan?
I think, because I'm not.
Okay.
Fancy back.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion since it got passed down the line. In the matter of, I just want to make sure I can read right. CU number 22002, Honey Creek Business Park, petition to establish a mixed-use development based upon the information received from the applicant and reflected in the minutes of this meeting. The Planning Commission finds that the site plan and related information received by the township on September 26, 2022 meets the required standards and findings for conditional use and recommends approval. Specifically, it's found that the following standards and findings found in section 36-222 of the zoning of the
It should be in the.
It says ZO.
Zoning ordinance.
Thank you. Of the zoning ordinance have been demonstrated by the applicant. And the list of them will be harmonious and in accordance with the objectives and regulations of the ordinance. 2, will be compatible with the natural environment and existing and future land uses in the vicinity. 3, that the proposed use will be served adequately by essential public facilities and services such as highways, streets, police and fire protection, drainage ways, refuse disposal, or that the persons or agencies responsible for the establishment of the proposed use shall be able to provide adequately of such service. 4, that the proposed use will not be detrimental, hazardous, or disturbing to the existing or future neighboring uses, persons, properties, or the public welfare. 5, that the proposed use will not create additional requirements at public cost for public facilities and services that will be detrimental to the economic welfare of the community. And lastly, will be compatible with the township's adopted master plan. With Carlisle Wortman noting that the properties must be combined. So
Is there support?
may I add
Yes.
that we should also cite the issues noted in Carlisle Wortman's letter of 10/21/2022. And although it doesn't have too much in there right now, OHM's letter of 10/4 of October 4th, 2022.
Yeah.
I forgot that.
Yes, because Carlisle Wortman's report responded to each of those conditions. All right. Is there support for the motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Moved by Commissioner Hyde, supported by Commissioner Shang to approve the conditional use. Any further discussion? Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Okay, Commissioner Moore,
No.
Commissioner Human,
No.
Commissioner Hyde,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang, yes, Commissioner Culbertson,
Yes. So it'll go for recommendation for approval with a split vote to the township board.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, you're welcome. Appreciate your time.
We don't have any unfinished business, no news business, new business. And we just have our information reports.
No, I was about to look it up. I think I already, probably one coming up in November.
November, okay. And which reminds me, I do have a kind of a report from the environmental task force that I'd like to share with you for the DDA. It was one of these things where they're installing the bus stops without any bicycle hoops. And so it's a recommendation that I don't think we can do it now, but to figure out how we can install some bike parking at those shelters. So I will get that to you before that meeting.
Next meeting's on November 14th.
Okay. TAP.
I was not at the last meeting, so I don't have anything to report other than there is an upcoming meeting in November, and it's typically the second Wednesday in November of the month. So looking it up now to find out what the date is, which would be the 9th.
Parks, and here, you might as well do the watershed too. Yeah.
I missed the watershed meeting.
Oh, okay.
So I can't report on that, unfortunately. The Parks and Rec Advisory Board met, and one of the things we discussed was that there's ongoing discussion with TAP about combining. I don't know how that's going to work out yet. I'm not part of that discussion, but it was just talked about in the meeting that was going on. If we were to combine, we wouldn't necessarily need 2 reps from the planning commission, but I don't know how we're going to work that out. So we'll just have to see how, it may not even come about. We don't know yet. We were talking about, in the Parks group, we talked about the PROS plan, which is the future, the near and long-term expected plan for use and development of parks. And it would include, obviously, pathways. There's a lot of shared responsibilities in developing this, so it makes sense to combine the groups. I think it's going to happen. Anyway, we also talked about the Van Curler Preserve South access, which would be from across Huron River Drive, which is right there is a red light. I mean, we literally have to have a crosswalk to get to the border to border. So it would be a connection of our mainly used pedestrian and bike path into one of our preserves. It could be a really good use of that connectivity. It has to be done right. So we'll see how that goes. Those are the main points.
And I'm sorry, I went out of order because I didn't have my order here. So I'm going to go back to OHM and then CWA. Thank you.
One of my updates is for the Liberty Road Water Main Project. Phase 2 and 3 of that were slated to start today. So those will be ongoing throughout this month and through the winter. I don't believe it's anticipated to take too terribly long, month or so, for the actual work. But that's exciting news that that's finally getting going. And then I can speak a little bit on that Van Curler pathway connection as we're helping out with that. We included in our proposal a optional rapid flashing beacon that is very preliminary at this point. We don't have studies done yet. We're still coordinating with Road Commission, with the Parks Group, with Metro Parks. That's all beginning basically now, those coordinations and meetings and such. So we are looking at that crossing though to get over to Van Curler. I do think that is very important, like you mentioned. So if you had any other questions on that specifically, I can probably shed some more light on it, but that is underway as well. Zeeb Phase 4 is complete. That looks good. I don't think there's any others at this point, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if you had anything.
I think one thing I wanted, now that you brought up the crosswalk and the blinkers and stuff, there have been studies that have said, especially at night, that those blinkers actually cause more issues than it's not as safe, and it's actually better to light the crosswalk than have the blinkers. Now, the blinkers work well during the day, but it's at night that they actually cause drivers to miss pedestrians.
To miss seeing.
Yes, miss, not miss, yeah, right, miss seeing the pedestrians. And so, you know, especially when we have, you know, it's in a place that isn't lit, there are all sorts of issues with glare and things, so.
Have you heard any discussion about that?
About what in particular?
About having overhead lights light up the crosswalk at night?
I believe that it was mentioned, kind of a preliminary something to look into, but it hasn't gone past that. And I also want to make sure it's clear that the rapid flashing beacon is not definitive yet. It's definitely something we're looking into, and still working on getting everyone's input. See if it's feasible there. I mean, those are pretty pricey and maintenance and whatnot, but figuring out the logistics is kind of what we're starting to focus on and see what the best crossing is at that location.
And I think some of the other issues are depending on if DTE has to provide the lighting, they don't have, I mean, the foot candle levels that they have are kind of outrageous. So that's another issue. You know, you don't need a lot of lighting when you don't have lighting you know, when it's dark all around you, you need very low illumination. And unfortunately, a lot of those fixtures are really high. You know, you have two options basically for their LEDs, and it's, yeah, pretty.
There won't be a whole lot of night use, but I can see people being in the preserve and it gets dark. And then they have to get safely back to their cars that might be in the parking lot of it's Dexter here on Metro Park.
Oh, that's
Right
the
there.
parking that,
So
yeah,
if, right from Dexter here on Metro Park, the border to border makes a northern loop and then goes east. And right from there up to Huron River Drive would be a walkway, and then cross into the park, into the preserve. So people will be coming back and possibly after dark.
or at dusk, and
Or at
that's
dusk.
really a tough time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing to be thinking about.
Okay. All right.
Could I ask a question? The Liberty Water Main project that you were talking about, where is that? I've been noticing all along Liberty, say west of Saginaw Forest, was construction was going on about over a week ago. And so.
Yeah, I know they were wrapping up phase one recently, earlier in the summer. I was just pulling up a map quick. I know that this phase includes a portion near Dornoch. I don't recall which end that is at the moment, but they're, here we go. Let me see.
I don't know where Dornoch is.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
Just before the polo fields.
So the final phase would be where they actually connect up the water mains to the existing. And so they build in the infrastructure and then they connect them all up in the last step.
Yes, I believe
So I can see
so.
them building it from west to east, because then it would connect up to what's already there near the intersection.
Near the intersection of what, Liberty and what?
Wagner. I don't know where they're tying in exactly, but it's toward that. Bill. She has the map, she knows.
Yeah.
I believe that was phase one. I can pull up an actual Liberty Roads water main specific map if anyone's interested in that. It'll just take me a second.
Was it, you were just trying to figure out the,
Yeah, I don't want to, you don't have to do that. I just was curious what. So that's all part and parcel of the same project.
Yeah, they split it up into basically two phases. So they're getting started on the second phase and wrapping up a few parts on the first phase. So this is also the phase that is near the Polo Fields golf course, which is near the Dornoch area as well.
Okay.
we need to add, we need to add to this list, what is it called? The
Fire Services
Fire Services.
Guidance Committee.
Okay.
Is it time or?
Yeah, go ahead, because you can report on all of yours together, so.
Okay, well, I just say that we had our first meeting that was called to assist in generating a recommendation to the Board of Trustees, what the fire department requires in terms of personnel, equipment, facilities, the whole gamut. You know, where do we stand now? What's in the near future, and what would be in the long-term needs of the fire department? And we had our first meeting last Wednesday. We'll have another meeting weekly. We're set up right now weekly on Wednesdays, but that might change.
And you have a timetable, right, that you have to
Right.
make your recommendation
The
by?
recommendation has to be presented to the Board of Trustees on the 15th of December. Actually, we have to make the recommendation no later than December 1st. And then they have a meeting one meeting following that before the end of the year. So that's the timetable. We're going to be relying on past studies. We're going to be relying on Carlisle Wortman and others providing information on the current proposed large density proposals that have been approved or that might be in the pipeline. So we can, and then we're also trying to see what properties could be developed into more dense development, so that we can see where the fire needs are going to be, fire service needs are going to be going into the future. And it's leading towards, but not necessarily going to consist entirely of, fire station number 2 and a possible number 3. But 2, we've already got some property, if that should become the recommendation. And we think it probably will, but we don't know that. We don't have all the data pulled together. So that's the start of the
Okay. Yeah.
study.
And Carlisle Wortman doesn't have anything. We have not, we still need to get our group together to continue our working on the zoning ordinances. And hopefully you can relay that to Doug, that we need to do that. And then the zoning board of appeals, the last meeting, we really haven't approved any variances. And the last one was a variance of putting in an in-ground pool that reduced the rear property line to like 2.5 feet. And they had already encroached on the property line with their decks. So that one didn't go.
That one what?
That one
Did not go?
did not, yeah, no, that was denied, yeah. Let's see. And then, let's see, oh, anything from the Board of Trustees that you wanna, you're doing a lot, Bob.
Oh, I wasn't thinking.
Yeah.
I didn't plan on that.
But yeah, that's okay.
They're going to be hearing tomorrow on any applicants who applied for the open trustee spot that I do know. I don't know how many there are, but there's apparently been some. So, and they may vote on it tomorrow. I mean, it could be that quick.
All right.
Do we know who's going to, they have to sort through appointments.
Right.
They have to sort through who's going to be here. Planning commission, other committees have open trustee spots. So, dominoes.
DDA?
Yeah,
DDA didn't meet yet.
they're meeting in November, yeah.
They're like every other month.
And then the only other, just a reminder, that we're having that joint, on the 14th of November, we have the joint, committee meeting, all boards and commissions. So planning commission will affect, we will call the meeting to order at 8 o'clock that evening for planning commission. So from 6:30 to a little bit before 8 will be the environmental task force and discussions among the commission. So that's going to be primarily a Zoom meeting, but we'll be here because we'll have to call this meeting to order.
Will we be using these things or do we need to do it?
We will probably join the Zoom meeting with these, would be my guess. Otherwise, we'll have to, I don't know, we won't be able to participate if we don't use the mics here. Because if we all joined, we'd have to turn off all our mics. Yeah, okay, I think I haven't heard anything on road commission advisory, although it looks like there's a Park Ridge SAD that's being explored. And this time it's, just keeping one section paved that's paved and the rest doing some drainage. So, yes. All right, minutes. I did have Mr. Fink review his portion of the minutes, and he said it was close enough.
So I see the agenda has 2 sets of minutes.
Yeah, one is the no meeting minutes, and the other one are the real minutes.
So the special meeting.
Are the minutes, yeah. So actually, we can probably do both at the same time, because the no meeting just says no meeting.
What I'm saying is.
Yeah.
I'm gonna check before I say something inaccurate. I only have 1 set of minutes.
Right, and the other minute is just to say no meeting.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, sorry. Not that there are no meeting minutes. It's the minutes of no meeting.
Gotcha.
If that works.
Motion to approve the minutes of September 26, 2022.
Is that how you'd like to do it?
Yeah, why don't we do the other one, both of them, yeah,
And
and the minutes of the no meeting, or it's basically the minutes of the prior,
The announcement of the new meeting.
right,
Okay.
yeah,
All right, I amend my motion to include the minutes of the announcement of no meeting, of a special meeting, of a no special meeting on September 29th, 2022.
so
the announcement of the no meeting on September,
26th, and then the,
Well, the dates are different. The 29th and the 26th.
right, was the 26th is the no meeting,
Correct.
and the 29th are the minutes that as submitted.
So I'll say it better.
Okay,
I move to approve the minutes from the meeting on September 26, 2022, and the no meeting minutes from the special meeting of September 29th of 2022.
okay.
is that the order?
The special meeting was 9/29.
I think she mixed them up, the dates. The
Yeah.
no meeting is the 26th.
26th.
Well, I'm reading from here. The no meeting is, the special no meeting was on the 29th, but
And
No,
no,
the
the
agenda,
no,
it's opposite that. It's saying that the no meeting was on the 26th and the special meeting was on
and the 29th, and the 29th was a Thursday. Just checking.
26 was no meeting, the 29th was a special.
Special meeting.
Is that what you're?
I see. I'm
Okay.
sorry. You're right. I did mix that up.
Okay.
Let me restate that. I move to approve the minutes from the no meeting of September 26, 2022, and the minutes from the special meeting dated September 29th, 2022.
Support, okay, whoa,
Go
okay,
ahead.
Commissioner Human supported. And, okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Move to adjourn.
To adjourn by Commissioner Hyde and supported by Commissioner Moore and supported by Commissioner Hyde. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, and we'll adjourn at 9:42.